This video will be about using the pen tool, and specifically using the pen tool to create an application icon, or you can think of it as a logo. Getting into Illustrator, I have a clean document here, clean artboard, and before we get started with our actual artwork, let's take a look at the pen tool. So it's the fifth one down in the toolbar on the left. Looks like an old school ink pen nib. Right? I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And the pen tool is a drawing tool, and it works in a couple different ways. Just out of the box, click and go. If I click to start drawing, it's going to show me a connecting line to my next point. And if I just click, move and click, move and click, move and click, move and click, it's giving me straight lines and sharp corners. Whenever you draw shapes with the pen tool, unless it's your intention just to draw line segments, if you're actually drawing a shape, be sure that you go back to where you started and close the shape. You can see when I'm just drawing, it's just showing the pen nib. When I hover back over where I started, it's showing me a small circle next to the pen tool indicator, showing that it's going to close the shape that I'm making. So from there, I would go back to my selection tool, actually drag into it again, and then the stroke and fill options will show in your main taskbar, and you can see what I have here is one solid shape, right? Okay, the other way the pen tool works, I'm going to hit P on my keyboard to get back to the pen tool, is to make organic curves. And this works by clicking and dragging before you move on to the next point. What that does is create the control bars or handlebars for your corners and anchor points that you can then use to manipulate the arcs of what you're drawing. So let's see what that looks like. So if I start out and click and drag, and you can see these handlebars I'm talking about. And this is going to inform the curvature of what I'm doing. If I now start to move, you can see that's starting out with a curve. I'm just going to do a little kind of S curve action. And you can see when I click and drag and pull out these handlebars, it's actually informing a curve for these objects, for this shape that I'm drawing. Again, I'm going to go back to the beginning. I see the little circle. I'm going to click, and now I have a closed shape. All right, so that's my organic curved shape. Now, the selection tool is for grabbing objects, right? Black arrow, solid filled arrow, entire shape. The white arrow is for addressing individual anchor points. So if I grab the direct selection tool, or the white arrow, I'm going to click on my organic shape down here. It's going to highlight all these individual anchor points or corner points that I created while I was drawing, all those places that I clicked and drug out the handlebars. And what I can do after I draw is go back and adjust where these points are. Maybe it's not quite in the right spot, or I can actually click on the ends of these handlebars and readjust the curvature of these corners. Okay, you get the idea. So with the pen tool, especially if you're tracing a sketch, after if you get close with the first pass, then you can go back using the direct selection tool and then readdress the individual anchor points and fine-tune what you've drawn. and get it exactly right. So let's look at an example for this. I'm going to clear off my artboard here, just select everything, hit backspace or delete. I have a sketch to start with to direct what we're going to do here, and we are going to bring that in, put it on a layer, lock the layer, put a clean layer on top of that, and work directly over the sketch to inform what we are creating. So the right way to get an image into Illustrator, and please don't just open an image file in Illustrator. It will open in RGB color space, and the resolution will be kind of a wild card as to what it is. So always start with a clean document that's set up for print. 300 ppi CMYK color space. So under File, right in the middle is Place. I'm going to go ahead and navigate to the sketch that we're going to start with. Little whirling beach ball of death there. And you'll see what it's going to show me is a pointer and a small thumbnail version of the image that it's going to bring in. I have two options. If I just click on the artboard, it will drop the image in full size that it can be at print resolution. Or if I go back to my import here, I can also click and drag and proportionally determine exactly how big I want this thing to be. Okay, so this is the sketch. The final goal here is an application icon that's for runners to track their shoes. But really, it's about drawing and making these shapes. So I have the image of my sketch. In my layers palette, I am going to lock this layer that the sketch is on. I'm going to rename it Sketch so that I know what it is later. I'm going to create a new layer on top of that layer by clicking on the Create New Layer icon. Looks the same as New Layer icon in Photoshop. I'm going to change the name of this layer to Art. And now I'm ready to start drawing. I'm going to zoom in here so that you can get a good look at what I'm doing. And what I'm going to draw is the bottom of the shoe over here on the right hand side. So I'm going to grab my pen tool, and the trick, what I'm going to draw is just the outline of the bottom of this shoe. And then we're going to draw a couple additional lines that we're going to copy and space around, and then we'll use Pathfinder to cut up this shoe. Same thing with this guy underneath that's in Profile. I'll draw one outline that's the entire shoe, and then I'll put in my detail lines, and then I'll use those to cut up the original shape and change the colors in the individual pieces as necessary. But first order of business, we need the outline of the bottom of this shoe. So again, pen tool. And the trick to drawing, and it's easiest when you're working directly over one of your own sketches, can't stress that enough, is to click and pull the handlebar in the direction that you want the line to go. So I'm going to start right here at the top, where your little toe would be. I'm going to click, hold, and pull the handlebar in the direction that this line is going. I'm going to work clockwise. Okay? And so you can see now I'm pulling out this way to the right. I'm going to go a little ways down, pull out the handlebar until I can see the line behind me is following the curve of the outline that I'm trying to make. And then I'm just slowly going to work my way around the bottom of the shoe. Clicking and pulling and making sure that the line behind me follows the curve of the outline, and that I'm pulling to in front of me in the direction I'm going on the line also. Now, the rule of thumb or best practice is your handlebars should never overlap, so I'd never want handlebars that overlap the past one like that. And you want as few anchor points as you can draw. When you're just getting started and not as practiced, err on the side of more anchor points than less. As you get more familiar with the tool, you'll have a better feel for how many anchor points you really need. Now at this point, since I didn't change my stroke and fill to just a stroke, I can't see my drawing underneath anymore. So if you hit Shift X on the keyboard, it will swap your stroke and fill, and now you can see all I'm looking at is just the outline of what I'm trying to draw. And I'm just going to continue on, slowly working my way around the bottom of the shoe, working on completing this outline. And I'm going to come up here close to where I started, but not quite. And then little circle next to the pointer shows I'm going to close my shape. I definitely want to close shape. And then I can move away, go back to my selection tool, drag back into it, and then you'll see if I open my swatches palette that I can also give this a fill color, and that's what my shape looks like. Looks like the bottom of a shoe. Now, I did a fairly good job drawing this, except for right here at the very beginning. So I'm going to go to my direct selection tool, the white arrow. I'm going to, right here where this little spur is in the drawing, I'm going to click on that anchor point. The handlebar before it is what's going to let me adjust that. And I just need to take it down a little. And then it also looks like I need to cheat that one anchor point up a bit so that it rounds out. And that's pretty good. That's certainly bearable. Okay, now I would do the same thing as I said to get the outline of the one in profile, and then just put in a few of those detail lines. But what we're going to look at first is getting all these marks here on the bottom of this guy. So for me, at this point, and I'm just going to bring this up to an kind of empty area, zoom out a little bit so I can still see the original for reference. I'm going to turn this thing so it's pretty much straight up and down. That's going to make it easier to draw and copy and paste things. Then I'm going to go ahead and turn off the fill. I'm going to click on the stroke to address that. I think I'm going to work this eventually pretty much into kind of a monochromatic orange and yellow, maybe two-tone situation. So I'm going to make this outline that deep orange out of my swatches palette. Now, I need to make all these lines, and I'm going to make them so that they go beyond the outline of the bottom of the shoe, and then I'm going to use Pathfinder to cut the bottom of the shoe up into those individual shapes, those squares. So I'm going to start with an arc. So about 7 down in the toolbar over on the left is the line segment tool. Underneath the line segment tool is the arc tool. And how this works is you click and drag, and it'll drag out your arc, right? I'm not going to worry about how it looks. I'm going to keep it pretty level. I just want to make sure the edges go left and right beyond the outline of the shoe. Now, to adjust this arc, I'm going to grab my white arrow, my direct selection tool, click on this anchor point on the right, and you can see right here I have a handlebar. Okay? I'm going to arc this so it looks like the bottom of our shoe down here, right? Go back to my selection tool, that's V on the keyboard. And then I'm going to put this first one roughly where it goes. I'm going to hold down Alt, drag a copy, and then I'm just going to do that a few times until I get the top about right. I'm going to stop here. Now, the bottom from the heel up should be arced the other direction. So over here underneath the rotate tool, it's pretty close to the middle. Looks like a circle with an arrow. Kind of also looks like the Ouroboros, the snake eating its tail. Underneath that is the reflect tool. If I select that tool and then go back directly to the icon and double click, it will bring up the reflect dialog box. Always when you get these kinds of dialog boxes, click on preview so that you can take a look at what it's going to do. What I need it to do is flip on the horizontal axis, and I want it to make me a copy. If I just hit OK, it would perform the transformation and leave it at that. But if I hit copy, it will leave the original and give me a copy with that transformation performed. So now you can see here is the bottom pieces. I'm just going to move that down, and then again I'm just Alt on the keyboard, dragging down copies. And I think that's one too many. I think it's more about spacing than it is the number. Okay, so I'm going to put one more here on top. And move it down, it'll go. And then I'm going to, underneath the arc tool is the line segment tool where it originally was. I'm going to grab that, click, hold shift so that I get a straight line, and put a straight line segment directly in the middle there. Right? If I go back to my selection tool now and move this up out of the way where we can see it completely, that's what we're looking at. And now what I need are the longitudinal or vertical lines that are going to separate this thing. And again, I'm going to use the arc tool, which is underneath the line segment tool. I'm just going to pull that down, and then I'm going to adjust. So click and drag, let go when you have room, top and bottom extra. Go back to the direct selection tool or white arrow. I'm going to go ahead and click on this top anchor point. I'm going to move it a little, and then the handlebar for that is way down here. Put that there, and then I'm going to grab this bottom one. I'm going to move it about right there-ish. Go back to my selection tool, and yeah, That looks about right. Again, back to the reflect tool. With that one long line selected, I'm going to double click on my select tool. I'm going to click vertical on the axis, and then I'm going to make a copy. Okay, back to my selection tool, or V on the keyboard, and this one's going to need turned a bit, so rotated. All right, rotate this one just a little. And that looks pretty close. Okay, I think now what it needs is a line segment. So click and hold on the arc tool now, back to the line segment tool. I'm going to start right in the middle, click, drag, hold shift so I get a straight line. Back to my selection tool and just kind of visually move that in the middle. Direct selection tool, bottom of the anchor, and I can move the bottom just to cheat that over. And that's what we have.